Kia ora, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Untidy. I'm Hannah Davison, co-founder and author of the My Big Moments children's books and mother to two children aged 11 and 9. Had to think about that. And I'm here with...
Matilda Green and husband Art Green.
Hi.
It's very exciting because we've got 3/5 of our family on the podcast today. We've got myself and my husband Art, and we've also got our 9-week-old baby Penelope. So it's a real family podcast today.
We also have Buster just licking his ass over on a chair over there. So we have 4/6.
Yeah, 4/6.
I
Anyway, so very exciting.
This is about time. I just wonder who we're going to have next week. Will it be Autumn? Will it be Milo? I mean, who knows? We'll just keep adding.
I feel like Milo would be keen to come on the podcast, and he'd be like, Hannah, do you like trains? That's what it'll start off with, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I will play along because I don't particularly care for trains, but for Milo, I'll be there. I'll do it.
I feel like maybe 50% of parenting is pretending to be interested in what your kids are up to. Like, I swear some days I've spent hours just watching them do some sort of little really kind of lame jump spin trick. You know, where they're like, Dad, watch this. I'm like, yeah, mate, what's up? And he just does a little sort of jump with a half twist. I'm like, oh, that's so cool, man.
I know. I think like a lot of parenting is about acting convincingly with enthusiasm for kids, for things your kids are talking about, explaining to you, showing you, and stuff that you've and playing along with things you're like, I've got no idea what you're talking about, and I'm just waiting for enough information for some sort of penny to drop so I can actually really play along. Like my children are now like, Alex will sort of just start cracking up in the car, and I'm like, oh, what are you laughing about? And he's like, I saw this meme, and then explains some really obscure reference, probably to Minecraft, that I don't understand. And I'm like, oh, that is funny.
Yeah, that's a classic. And I feel like kids haven't learned that you can't explain those kind of jokes. You know, they really are look at it, like look at the actual meme and laugh. You can't explain a meme, can you?
No.
Yeah,
you can't.
and just like before we crack into everything, Milo is just talking about playing with kids. Milo is going through a stage of being very specific with his play, and there's a lot of pressure. So he'll be like, "Mummy, pretend I'm a daddy tiger, and you're my owner, and I've just been put in the zoo, but I'm not happy about it, and so you have to come in and get me out, and then we go hunting together, and maybe we find some mice. Pretend that." And I'm like, oh,
wow,
Jesus. Okay, so it's like I've really got to get into character, and I'm like, right, so okay, so I'm the owner, and right, so am I breaking you out of the zoo? And he's like, yeah, but it's like there's a lot going on. It's very specific, isn't it?
Oh my
It's a lot
God.
of pressure.
And you've got to remember the brief.
I know. And then if I'm like, hey, tiger, let's go find some mice. He's like, no, I didn't say that. And I'm like, oh yes, so of course. I'm so sorry. It's such a complicated brief. I'm sorry, I can't stick to it.
Oh God. Well, the reason that we have Art here today with us is because we thought we've just had Valentine's Day and you've just had your 5-year anniversary, and we thought what a great time to get you all together whilst you're in the trenches of parenthood with 3 preschoolers to talk about love.
What a thrill.
What
I tell you what, it's an honor to be on the podcast. I tell you what, a long-time listener, first-time recorder. And yeah, it's just great to be here.
You've been waiting for this moment, haven't you, Art?
I've been waiting so long, Hannah. I thought I would have got a call up earlier, but no.
But you do get called up quite often as tech support. So, you know.
And I tell you what, this morning's tech problems they weren't easy ones to solve, actually. And in fact, you know, speaking of Untidy, like this is the current situation that we're rolling with. I don't know. We were lucky we had some extra tech attachments hidden away in a closet.
Yeah.
So we managed to make this work.
We always manage to make it work, and that really sums up parenting anyway. I mean, often we do see you do feature quite a lot though, Art, with sort of like arms coming in, ferrying a baby in for breastfeeding, and then removing baby out of the shot again once she's fed. So I mean, you have cameoed, but I think it really is time that we hear your voice.
Well, here it is.
Okay, so you guys, you've just celebrated your 5-year wedding anniversary just after Valentine's Day, and apparently your 9th year together. And I always I don't like going on how long people have been married, as if the relationship before marriage doesn't count. It's like, no, you've been doing it a lot longer. Like, how long have you been together doing this thing? But who would have thought back when you first met on TV that you would eventually have 3 children and be living in a small town and Matilda singing in a choir at the local RSA?
I'll tell you what, I would not have thought that. Well, especially because after we met, it was like The Bachelor at that time was a really big deal because it was like the first kind of Kiwi version, wasn't it? And so after that, it was just this crazy world of like cool PR events, and we were doing cool things like that. And now we don't get invited to anything because we're really boring. But it's but it's just amazing how in 5 years you can so much can change. You know, you can just have totally different hobbies, totally different interests, and yeah, it just happens so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, well, your values change, don't they, at different stages in your life, depending on what you're up to. And would I have thought that we would have been where we are now when I first went on The Bachelor? No, definitely not. And with a wife that sings in the local choir, I don't know whether if I'd known that that's the way it was going to play out. No.
That you're essentially married to an octogenarian in training.
Yeah, well, she's ahead of her time, isn't she?
Oh, she is. She is.
Because
she's ahead of the game.
she's already in with the oldies. So when she's 80, she will have been in the choir for about 50 years. So
she'll be
you'll be an old
running the
hand.
show.
She will be. Yep, she'll be writing the music.
Yeah, well, it's also a really long time to force my family to come to my concerts. So, like, you've got a lot of concerts ahead that you have to come to.
I just feel for the kids. I mean, it's okay for me because I might know some of the songs. I'm okay sitting still for a while. God, just think of those children, what you're putting them through.
Oh, it'll be good for them. But at the last concert, actually, we had 17 songs. It's a long concert.
Too many.
Wow,
And
that's a lot to demand of your audience.
It was a big day. And after the 4th song, I heard my son at the back of the room saying, "Is it done yet?" I was like, No, sweetie. We've got a long way to go.
Oh my god. Back on The Bachelor, when you went into that show, was your intention like, I genuinely want to find someone that I can build a life with here? Or was this like, this is an opportunity, let's just see how it rolls out? Did it surprise you that it actually resulted in a relationship?
I think both of those options were in my head, Like, I thought, sure, it'd be great if I meet someone that I can fall in love with, spend the rest of my life with. But I think, I was 26, and I think realistically, I was like, I mean, will that happen? I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, it's
probably
young.
not. But I'm still too young. I'm not even thinking about marriage. So I'm like, at least hopefully I'm going to meet someone. This is a really cool opportunity to, do something that, hardly anyone gets a chance to do. And who knows what opportunities it's going to lead to. And, hopefully I'm going to meet someone really cool out of this as well, and just cross our fingers,
Yeah. What strikes me about it is, like, Maddie, you were 24, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, confirmed. And you were 26. Like, people who really genuinely aren't quite marriage fit or marriage ready at that age are getting put on a show that is essentially designed to look like it's ending in a marriage. That's wild.
It's a little bit odd, isn't it? And I mean, there were people on that show that were even younger. There are like 20-year-olds going on that show, but I think it's slightly different. It's not really all about marriage at the end of it, like it is in the States. Well, at least it historically was in the American version of the show, where they would propose at the end of it. But now it's like it's kind of just the dating show where you might end up with someone at the end. It's not so much about actually getting married.
I think they sort of read the room around that and realized, like, I think we're getting a little pushy with the marriage thing.
With the lifelong commitment, it might be a big ask.
It feels a little much. So then with our season, it was a promise ring, So it's like I promised to just, I don't know, stay contractually obligated to you for a certain period of time, and then you may go your separate ways. But we didn't, much to the production house's glee, you might say.
Yeah, that really worked out. Okay, I want to talk about the conundrum of Valentine's Day. Your anniversary was not on Valentine's Day, was it? It was like,
no, it was the day after.
Okay, that's safer. Although you could have just tidied up the whole like Valentine's Day issue by having your anniversary on it, and then you don't have to deal with the conundrum bit. But like, what are your thoughts? Like, is Valentine's Day a good way to celebrate love, or should we be celebrating that every day and without being coerced into buying mediocre chocolates? Because let me tell you, on February the 13th, I was in a supermarket like quite late in the evening, just picking up a couple of things on my way home, and I saw this couple that I'm like, well, you've just ruined Valentine's Day for me forever. Like, grumpy looking couple, obviously at odds with one another, and she was like forcing him to buy chocolates in a heart-shaped box and some supermarket flowers, and so she was there sort of like, pushing him to buy these like coerced chocolates and flowers. And I'm like, oh wow, like this is what it's doing to people, this pressure of like, you've got to do something, you have to celebrate it. And I'm really torn because I'm like, well, it's this day that pushes people to do something, which I don't like, because I feel like, love is an everyday kind of thing. Anyone can make one grand gesture once, but unless you're showing up in your relationship on a daily basis, it doesn't count, that grand gesture. But then also, you don't want to just let that day slide by with no acknowledgement, because then you're like, well, we didn't take an opportunity to celebrate one another at all. And then does it, what do you do?
Oh, it is a tricky one, isn't it? First of all, because we got married on the 15th of February, our florist was really annoyed with us. She was like, that's literally the worst possible day, but that's okay. But I think Valentine's Day is important because I know we should be expressing our love to our partner every day, but we don't, right? I think that's just the crux of it. We're all busy, and sometimes you fall into a habit of just, day-to-day life, that you don't buy flowers every day, or you don't do these cute little gestures every single day. So I think it's a nice reminder. Like, you don't have to spend money. I think that's the main problem with it, is the pressure to go buy stuff, buy chocolates, buy flowers. I like to think of it as just a reminder that you really love your partner, and it's a good little push to be like, let's do something out of the normal day, and even just, I don't know, making them a coffee, or doing something that will help their day, and just being like, happy Valentine's Day, I love you, or something just nice like that. It doesn't have to be a big grand gesture. But I feel like that couple that you saw, Hannah, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that she doesn't get a lot of that. So maybe
she's like, the one day I will coerce you into a heart-shaped box of chocolates.
So if you have to like pry any kind of expression of love out of your partner, maybe there's a deeper thing you might want to explore, about just feeling loved and feeling valued. What do you think, Art?
What do I think? Well, I mean, firstly, in defense of the supermarket chocolate flower lady, she just maybe has an obsession with heart-shaped boxes with chocolates, and they only come around once a year. So she's like, "This is my chance. I've got to get them."
I'm adding to the collection.
But in terms of Valentine's Day, in general, I think, yeah, it'd be great if we didn't need it, if everyone just celebrated love every day and valued our partners. But the reality is that, yeah, like, our lives are busy. We're so caught up in our own world that, like, it's hard to do that every day. And even if we did do it every day, even if we did show our love every day, I still think it is kind of nice to have a one special day. That's because if you show your love every day, then that becomes a norm in itself. And so I think it's good to have one sort of special day that you do something special. And like you suggested, Maddie, not spending any money. So figuring out what your significant other loves and do something meaningful for them that doesn't cost you any money, because that's the stuff that really means the most, I think.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of it just being a reminder to, like, just shine a spotlight on, oh, we're supposed to celebrate each other and do something to acknowledge our union. What's it going to be? And even if it's just sparking a conversation about, like, well, how do we do Valentine's Day as a couple? What does it mean to us, and how are we going to acknowledge it in one another on this day? And I did see a cool thing pop up on Instagram. I don't know if you guys follow Jimmy on Relationships or Matthias J. Barker. Do you follow those guys?
No.
They're great. Highly recommend it. And they teamed up, and for Valentine's Day, you could download a set of question cards so that you can ask, like, have a Valentine's date with your partner, and instead of, buying coercive chocolates and supermarket flowers, you can go through these, like, question cards so you can find out more things about them and, spark interesting conversations. And I kind of think those bigger, deeper, more vulnerable, more explorative conversations are the things that build your relationship and build your connection anyway. And I really like that as an idea. Like, maybe it's something that pushes your boundaries as a couple a little bit to grow the partnership even more.
I love that. Yeah.
Art, do you love that?
Oh, God, Hannah, I love that. Hannah, I'm also curious. I mean, Valentine's Day for a married couple, this can be relatively boring, but as as the only single person in this in this podcast, wait, are you single?
It's embargoed information. Carry on.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just curious as to how your Valentine's Day went. And
Well, actually, I did. What I also like is when people call it Galentine's Day, and I actually took a dear friend of mine around.
wait, who says Galentine's Day?
The girls.
The single gals say Galentine's
Jesus
Day.
Christ.
Yeah, no, don't Jesus Christ, because there's a lot of single gals out there that are just like, well, this can be a shit day to remind me how single I am and how hard it is to put a super king duvet inner inside the duvet cover by myself. Like, nothing makes you feel more single than running out to buy cat food, and only cat food, or putting a super king duvet in it inside of a super king duvet cover. It's a nightmare, and you're like, oh God, why isn't the other person on the corner? Anyway, I did that day pick up a bunch of flowers and some nice chocolate for another single friend of mine, and took that round to acknowledge her. And she was going through, like, kind of a tough time as well, and I just wanted to make her feel special. So, like, I think it's also a time to recognize your significant friendships as well as, significant romantic others. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Now I understand Galentine's Day.
Yes.
For sure. And I
but-
propose maybe a Ladentine's Day or Bowentine's Day as well, because there's a lot of guys out there who probably feel the same way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so true. Like, maybe they could get together and do a little potluck. You know,
That's a nice idea.
yeah, the lads do that, don't they? Little potlucks.
Oh, that's a bit cute. Do they? Is that what the lads do, Maddie?
No.
How do you know?
No, they absolutely don't. The gals do potlucks. I've never heard of a group of lads doing a potluck dinner in my life.
Yeah, no, potluck dinners, and then we'll talk about the books that we've been reading. and then we'll do each other's nails.
That's nice. A little charcuterie board, I think, would go down well at a Valentine's Day. And the other thing I did was I actually went for a swim in the ocean and
Oh,
went out for dinner. And my daughter did come with me, and it was lovely. But I think it's like it's a good day, and if you're not doing a Valentine's or a Galentine's, like do something for yourself that makes you feel good. Because if that day comes along and you're not in a relationship, and maybe you wish that you were in a relationship, and it makes you feel a bit shit when everyone's like showing off their coercive chocolates at work, just a little bit of pouring love back into yourself or doing something that makes you feel good, having an experience that makes you feel good and looking after yourself. It's another reminder to, shine the love somewhere. What better place than to shine it back on yourself?
exactly. Love in all its forms.
That's right. Well, we've solved Valentine's Day. Okay, good
Yeah,
job.
there you
All
go.
right. So since you first met, like, how do you think your relationship has evolved as you've like adapted to your changes in circumstances and in one another? Because, with work, career, kids, property, all of those things, things are changing all the time. But then as a partnership, you've got to sort of ride out all of those changes and adapt as you go. So what do you think about when you think about the way that your relationship has evolved to accommodate changes in circumstances? What do you think about that's changed for you guys, or how have you adapted?
I think we are in quite a unique position because of how we met and everything that we've gone through just with media and spotlight and everything after the show. And we went through that together. That's a really unique thing to both experience at the same time. And that really bonded us, I think, because it was quite hard, and it was new for the both of us and challenging for the both of us. So we kind of weathered that together and figured out how to communicate because it was quite a challenging situation dealing with media and people knowing us and opinions about our relationship and all of that. So I think that really helped us to have that communication kind of nailed early on. And it meant that for the different seasons of our relationship, like having kids and relationship kind of evolving through that, we had that solid foundation of communication so that when things got difficult or we felt like uh, the ratio on something was off, we can broach the subject quite easily because we've kind of had practice. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that I actually think it's not such a unique situation that we found ourselves in moving through that. I just you saying all that reminded me. I was recently talking to a friend who like experienced the similar thing with their relationship. He and his now fiance, like they went through building a business and building a house, and then like almost losing it all through COVID and like all the stress and all sorts of stuff, and they just think that they've come out of it so well and so much stronger together. And I think that like that is actually a really powerful thing that you can do as a couple is go through hardship, and provided that the communication lines are there, I think that it just strengthens you so adequately for so many different situations in life. Not that we're really answering the question that you
I think you
have
are.
put to us.
I think, yeah.
How have we evolved, do you think? You've become more naggy, haven't you?
No, I think because we hashed out quite a few things early on in our relationship. Like I was a real people pleaser, just beyond yeah, it was just too much. So I was kind of used to being in relationships where I didn't want to be rejected, so I would kind of go along with everything. And like I didn't want to be difficult or a burden or whatever it was. I don't really understand. Maybe I've got to unpack that a little more. But so when I was first with Art, I was constantly like, yeah, yeah, that sounds great. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that too. And he'd be like, let's do this. And I'd be like, yeah, oh my gosh, I love everything. And then he brought it up one day. He was like, look, I feel like you agree with everything I say and are kind of going along with everything. And I don't feel like I can get to know you properly because you're not you're not being honest with me, like if you don't want to do something, or if you don't like something, or if you're not happy with something, just tell me. It's fine. I'm not gonna get upset if you don't want to do something or whatever it is. And then that was like a penny drop moment for me, and I realized how much I would do it, but I was just sort of blind to it up until that point. And so from then on, I was like, I'm a new woman. And then I was like, you know what, Art? I don't think I want to do that. Or I don't think I do like that. And it was actually quite refreshing. And I know it sounds small and, insignificant, but for me, it was a really big deal. And it was just really nice for him to open up a safe space and just say, like, you can just be who you are. You don't have to try and be this version of someone that you think I want or whatever it is. You can just be you, and it's fine. I love you how you are, and that was, I think, quite a big step for us. And then with you, oh God, you answered.
No, what were you gonna say? Go on.
Well, I think I was just going to say that you, like, we sort of met in the middle, because I changed my way with that, but I think you figured out that I also am sensitive, and that sometimes being direct is really important, but tone is important too, and so you sort of evolved in that way of, like, you figured out how to be direct with me as well.
And timing. Just knowing when to ask certain questions and knowing when not to ask certain questions can be a very useful skill to develop in any relationship, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know it's like just banging on the drum of the love languages thing, but I mean, I feel that was quite huge for us too. Once we figured out our different love languages, it helped me to understand Maddie a little bit more in terms of what she was trying to get out of me and what I could, give her to show that I love her. So yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah, and what I really like about that is that the conditions and the environment that you've created between you two has allowed for each of you to experience personal growth. And I just like, isn't that the point of being in a relationship, is making that safe, secure place for each person to grow and develop in the ways that they need to, and heal in the ways that they need to. I think it's really cool.
100%.
Yeah. So you are sometimes seen as something of like the poster children for couple goals in the vast landscape of New Zealand media. What does it feel like?
It kind of feels weird because it just feels like we don't deserve it. Like I feel like there are a bunch of couples out there that are just like us, that just don't have the spotlight on them. And there are probably a bunch of couples out there that have got things way more together than we do, and they should be far more of a couple role model sort of goal to people that offer far more useful advice than we do. So it feels a bit strange, to be honest. And at the same time, it feels quite nice because it means that people think that that we do have some really great connection and we do have things together in a relationship, and I think we do too. So
that's nice to hear, Maddie, isn't it?
Oh, it's lovely. But also, I feel like people don't really know. I think there's a bit of
don't know what it's like.
But you know what I mean? There's a bit of a danger of holding anyone's relationship up or putting it on a pedestal as, the poster children for couple goals or whatever, because nobody knows what somebody's relationship is like behind closed doors. Like, we do have a really great relationship, but we also disagree and we argue and, have challenging times in our relationship too, but we don't put that on social media, so people only see imagine that. Hold on, I'm just going to set up the Instagram live and then we're going to have an argument.
Look what Art's doing. He does it all the time.
Everybody DM him some abuse. But I feel like
what would the one thing be that I can think of, the one thing that really annoys you the most that I do?
Chewing on your fingernails.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God, it drives me crazy. But anyway, I mean, that's just like a non-event.
Obviously, Maddie, you don't do anything that really annoys Art. No,
absolutely
I need
not.
him to answer the question. Answer the question.
I'm an angelic saint. What do you have to say to that?
I totally agree 100%.
He has learned.
I can't think of a single thing.
I do annoying things though.
Do you? Tell me.
Oh my god, he's so scared.
What
What
do you think the most annoying thing you do is, Matty?
Look, I mean, to be honest, my mind is struggling to actually come up with one single answer because there are like quite a few things.
I can't think of any.
He's like, finally, this is my
Unfortunately, no.
moment. I'm glad I've waited this long because I have a lot to say.
Exactly. Okay, so I've got this.
Get comfortable. All right. Has he got a notebook?
Well, I've got this. I wrote down notes. No, it's a receipt. It's a good prop though, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it was good.
Things that annoy me. Oh, honestly, I can't even. I don't know. Just little annoying things.
I can actually think of one thing that I do that is annoying, and I can tell you get annoyed, and I get annoyed by myself doing it, but I just can't stop. It's when I am sharing an opinion on something, like maybe it's to do with parenting or something else, and then it's like, yeah, okay, cool, and then I just keep going on, and I can feel myself going on, and it's sort of like, yeah. I got it. That's okay, great. We'll do that. And I'm just still going. And I can feel, it's like I'm having this out of body experience where I'm like, shut up. Like you've said it. Just why are you doubling down on this?
Why are you doubling down on that,
I
Matty?
don't know. It's almost like I'm getting out my thought process, so I've got things to say and I want to say them no matter if somebody wants to listen or not. Maybe that's it.
And I think you want to be either challenged on it so that you can back up your knowledge on it, or you want me to agree with you. Either way.
Yeah.
No, I did actually just think of one other thing. Probably the most difficult thing I find about being in a relationship with Matilda Green is that she will sometimes commit to doing something. So like some sort of, a job, like just like an admin, usually it's an admin related job, like, oh, can you email such and such to just sort out something, or hey, have you paid that phone bill or something, and she'll be like, yep, I'll do it. I'm like, okay, cool. And then it's like a day later and I'm like, oh my god, should I ask her? Because if I'm in a lose-lose situation. If I ask her, then she's going to get angry at me. And if I don't ask her, then the thing's not going to get done. And it's a really tricky spot to find yourself in. And then the later you leave it, the worse it gets.
Well, that's because there's build up, and I can always tell when you're going to ask one of those follow-up questions, because it's like he is extra nonchalant, he's sort of just like waltzes in. He's like, hey, I just thought about yeah, I was just checking in on that. Did you ever end up sending that email, or where did we get with that? And so I could tell he's been like non-stop percolating on this one thing, but he's like, how am I going to follow this up? And yeah, I'm trying to get better at the defensive responses of like, yes, I'm getting to it, and then he's like, yeah, no, cool, it's totally fine. Yeah, I'm not worried about it. You just do
Nearly
it
crossed my mind
on your timeline.
It's so true though. Like there is really a lose-lose situation, and I do that to people as well. And then I feel bad because especially if they're like, yeah, no, I did that ages ago or whatever. Because then you're like, oh, I didn't mean to question your capabilities, but I also really struggle like loosening my sort of grim death grip on the reins of life.
Yeah, and it's a difficult thing. Like following up is a difficult thing in any situation, isn't it? Because if you're following up, you're wondering if a job has been done, and like it's always going to feel micromanagey, but it's just a part of life, right? You need to know whether something's been done, so you got to ask. How else are you going to know?
Exactly. Why can't you have that attitude towards it all the time?
This is recorded now.
I feel like I'm getting better.
You definitely are getting better. Yeah,
that is nice.
Growth.
And I would say that
Sorry.
one thing that and I've said this to Matty before, but I'll say it to you because it's nice to hear, that I've noticed about you guys and your relationship, which I really admire, is the way that you talk about one another when they're not around. I mean, I haven't experienced that so much with you, Art, but I have with Maddie, so she's going to look good. But, the way she talks about you and the things that she appreciates about you and the respect that she has when she's talking about you. And I just think that's such a mark of a strong relationship, is someone, without having to, demonstrating respect and appreciation for someone when they're not there. Because it can so easily go the other way with some people.
Yeah, it absolutely can. No, I think you're right. Yeah, I guess we just really respect each other and just really like each other.
Yeah, and that's something that I think. Oh God, do I generalize this? Sometimes as women, we can get a little gossipy. Like, hey, men
Oh,
can too. Men can too. I'm generalizing here,
Imagine
but
Valentine's Day, what that's like.
oh, they'd be just like my wife. Can you believe she forgot to pick up the kids? Oh my gosh. But and I feel like as I've gotten older, um, I don't want to say a bad word about anybody that I care about. Because, like sometimes like you could get together and be like, oh, classic friend XYZ is always late, or, oh, classic friend XYZ is, doing this or that. And I've realized like, that is still, I don't ever want to speak badly about Art, but because he is such a great human, such a great husband, and I love him so much.
No.
And like same with my friends as well. It's like I don't want to talk about anyone but behind their backs, because I would hope that they would do the same with me, right? Because there can be a lot of that, I think, with women especially. Oh God, do I say it? It's too scary.
nah, not even just with women. Like, I mean, I think we all catch ourselves doing that, whether you've got a penis or a vagina. Like, it's I think we naturally are quite judgmental organisms, and it's not a trait that I think anyone really wants to have, but it's just the reality. But I also think that you can train yourself out of that. Like, even like not just people, like even if it's just someone on the street and a little judgmental thought goes through your mind and you're just like, I think every time you catch yourself doing that, you got to try and rewrite that in your brain and just be like, no, I'm not even going to think that, or try and think something nice about that person. And then after a while, you actually do retrain your brain
Yeah.
and you will become less judgmental.
I think you're so right. And sometimes, I'll do that with someone on the street, and then I'll be like, wait, I don't even agree with that thought, that just like that intrusive little thought that just came up, that was obviously from some kind of conditioning or insecurity or, whatever my problem is that I've just projected onto them. I'm like, I don't even agree with that. But I think it's so good to bring awareness to it and rewrite it, as you say. And also, like, I made a conscious effort some years ago to not be in environments with people who really kind of got off on that bitching and moaning about and talking about other people. Like, it doesn't feel good when you walk away from it. Like, it might feel good in the moment because maybe you've just got like some angst inside of you and you want to get it out, and that seems to be a really easy way to do it. But afterwards you're like, oh man, like that doesn't feel good at all. So I think, not being in environments that encourage that kind of behavior by way of connecting to the people in that specific environment, I think is another thing to be aware of. But I wanted to ask, like, what does conflict look like for you guys, and how do you resolve your conflicts?
Conflict for us. I mean, I'll be honest. We've probably had more conflict since we've had kids, just because we're navigating our own parenting styles and trying to marry that up as well. And that can be a bit of an issue, I think, because you don't really know what kind of parent you're going to be until you're a parent, and then you're in it, and then you've also got your marriage to nurture as well as your kids, and so it's actually quite difficult to get completely on the same page, and so we've probably had more arguments, I think, in the last couple of years than we have throughout our whole relationship. Would you say?
Yeah, for sure. And I reckon with each kid, it's been more and more. And I think it's actually it can even be just the simple thing of, we're both getting less sleep. We both have less time for each other. So it's just a natural thing that happens. I mean, we're not communicating as well as we would like to because you just logistically you don't have the time. I mean, this conversation right now is probably the longest conversation that we've had in about since Penelope was born, because I mean, when do you have the time for it? So yeah.
Yeah.
And in terms of resolution,
So what does a conflict look like? A conflict looks like me getting told off.
well, no, I
Or we're about to
feel
have one live.
Tune in, folks. Here we go. Here's the goods.
We'll release the reel, especially of this part.
But I think like when we bring things up, it's really important to me that I try and diffuse myself a little bit, because sometimes I can be a bit like, well, I can feel sometimes my nervous system wants to have a fight. Like, you know, that feeling when you're annoyed about something, or you're a bit angry, or you're just feeling out of sorts and dysregulated, and your body kind of wants a fight, like you're kind of picking for an argument. And I can feel when that is happening in myself. And I think being that comes down to the meditation practice that helps you be aware of that. And so I mean, sometimes it happens, like sometimes I'll go more into the argument than is necessary. But I think like because the respect for each other is there, like we have arguments about things, but it's about the situation. Like I would never be like, no, you're a lousy piece of shit or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? I would never
Make it personal.
I would never be mean.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. Like you can argue about situations because you can figure out a solution, but there's no solution to like abusing your partner and telling them that they're a piece of shit or lazy or whatever, because then that's just being mean, and you don't want to be mean to someone you care about, right? That's just it's what you tell your kids every day. You don't want to be mean to people, and so how can you justify being mean to your partner who you love more than anything, you know? So yeah, I think we just resolve it through communication, not being personal, and just figuring out the steps to solve it. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, and so from a practical perspective, what that looks like is us having a little tiny scrap. We're pretty mild with our scraps, but it'll be a little mild scrap, and then we'll each go our separate ways and have a little bit of silence for depending on the severity of the scrap, and also not just the severity of the scrap, but like the current stress levels residing in that person. That usually determines how long the silence will last for. Sometimes it might be like 30 seconds, sometimes it might be a minute, sometimes it might be like a couple of hours. And then we'll come together and we'll both sort of apologize to each other usually, and so forgotten about. Or we'll talk it through. And sometimes we don't agree even at the end of that, and that's fine. But we always feel a lot better after actually talking about it.
And as a direct communicator, as it's been indicated that you are, do you both find it pretty easy, and how important is it to bring up the conversation about the conflict and deal with it in that moment, as opposed to letting their time run on something that's unresolved?
Oh God, I don't know. It's a bit of a balance, isn't it? You can't let it go too long. And it's always awkward bringing it up, trying to figure out exactly how you're going to bring it up without sounding like an attack. So I wish I had some advice for that, but I'm still trying to figure that out.
Well, like it also depends on your family situation as well, because sometimes things come up, like whether it's parenting stuff or whatever, and it's with the kids. And so then it's not as if I'm going to be like, hey, that's not how we should do it or whatever, because I don't want to do that in front of the kids, because we're a team, like we're a united front. And if they see us arguing about parenting in front of them, they're going to be like, well, who's steering this ship, right? Like if you guys don't know how to parent us, what the hell's going on? So then we sort of hold on to it. which is actually quite handy, I think, to not bring it up right in the moment, because then we've got time to cool down, percolate over it, and then bring it up and be like, hey, earlier when this happened, I think we could have handled that better, or I think we should uh, change our tactic on this, or I didn't like how you did this. I think we should talk about it, or whatever. And then that's actually quite good, because then the kids are out of the room or they're in bed or whatever, and we have a chance to debrief properly, rather than being right in the moment where you get that feeling of like, why are you doing that?
Yeah, yeah. And so, like through this season, where the pressure's more on your relationship, as you've got 3 really little children, and it's a season of a relationship that's often a bit shaky for people. So, what's your advice for sort of how you stay solid throughout these periods?
I think carving out time for each other when you can is really, really important. I spoke about it in the last podcast, that when you've got little kids and you're busy and you're working or whatever, it's really easy to turn into kind of teammates, like tagging out, tagging in. Someone's on kids, someone's working, then you swap over or whatever, and then you meet back in the evening and you're doing bath and bed and doing a bit of work at night or whatever. There is not a lot of time for each other, and if you can, if someone can look after the kids for a bit, it doesn't even have to be at night, could be during the day. Come and play with the kids for a bit, and you guys can even just go for a walk together or something. It's really important, because we weren't even going to do anything for our anniversary. And then we were like, right, it's our 5-year anniversary. Let's try and get a babysitter for the older two. Uh, and we managed to get one. And it was such a nice night, wasn't it? Like we just got to talk about everything that was on our mind. We got to plan for the future. Just getting out of your everyday routine is really important, to be able to have those conversations, because when you're in that daily grind, your conversations usually kind of are around the daily grind, around logistics and
Yeah, it's
whatever
not
else that
hot.
is. So
It's not hot to
no,
talk
it's
about
not hot.
logistics, is
It's
it?
not. To be like, who's picking up who, and who's gonna do this and whatnot. So it was really nice just to have an evening together, get on the same page and connect a little bit, and then, come back to the daily grind refreshed. So it is really important to carve that time out if you can, I think.
It's certainly something that we need to practice more than we preach. Um, I think for me, um, just the knowledge that it is just a season that will pass, and so like in my mind, I guess like we have the benefit of such a strong foundation before going through like having kids and stuff, which is definitely having kids is the biggest transition that we've experienced in our relationship. Um, so just knowing that it is a season and that it will pass, and that we will at some time we will have time again to ourselves and for each other, and um, and just not to worry about it, not to compare yourselves to other people at different stages in their lives. It's like, who cares? Like life's I think treating life like it's a marathon, not a sprint, and knowing that you will have time for stuff. I mean, you know, touch wood, you will have time for things. So yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And do you know what I think is probably the number one thing is prioritizing laughter? The
Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
it's really
Yeah.
important. And so, share funny stories. If something funny happens, like share it with your partner. Have a laugh. Have a laugh about how hard everything is at the moment. It's there. It's really important, and it's such a form of connection. I think, like when you can laugh together, and also for your kids to see that too, to see like, okay, well, they probably won't know it when they're little, but when they're a bit older, they can think, oh, mum and dad were really
Mm.
busy, going through quite a lot when we were little, but I remember them laughing. Like,
Mm.
I remember them sharing a joke and having a good time together, and I think that's really powerful for kids to see.
That's awesome. And even if they don't understand at this age, they feel it. You feel that in a room. And actually, I was having a conversation yesterday with our colleague Flicker, and we were talking about how sometimes our work that we all do together is our safe space. When things are rocky on the outside of work, we get together on our team chat on Slack or in work meetings, and no one's got a problem with pausing for a little funny, for a lull, just sharing some laughs, because we've got to be very real. Like, we're all working parents, and sharing some laughs together as a team, and actually getting into that space where we kind of don't have this emotional turmoil of whatever's going on with the family, and having that space, like, that really brings some levity to life. I think that's just so important. So I really like that. What are some, because you're so time poor with the kids, and I'm just a massive fan of small gestures. I just love, like, a small gesture to show someone that they're appreciated or considered, because I think that's so achievable, and it's something you can do often. You can do that on a daily basis, and that hits so much more than one thing being done once. So what are, like, some of the small gestures you do to show that you love and appreciate one another, and to stay connected?
Oh, I mean, Art is just the king of small gestures. I feel
Oh,
like I know. So things like, so we both have our domains around the house, really. Like, I do the washing, and I'm fine with that. I don't mind doing it, and like Art does basically all the outside jobs, and he does the jobs that I don't want to do, like emptying the compost, which is just, I mean, it's horrific. So, um, and there'll be times where I'll come home, and he's like, I know he's really time poor with work, and he's hung the washing out and brought it in, and just things like that he knows will make my day a little bit easier. Or he'll just bring me a coffee when I haven't asked for one, or he's just does really small things that he knows will either bring a little smile or will make my day a bit easier. He's just very thoughtful. And now, what do I do that's really cool?
Well, no, I think the main thing that you do for me, actually, Maddie, is, and it's not really a small gesture; it's bigger, and it's you giving me the time to exercise, actually, because you know how much it means to me for my mental health, and so and it hasn't always, like, you haven't always been as forthcoming with, like, giving me this time, because you sort of seen it as like, oh yeah, Art gets to, like, go and exercise while I'm looking after the kids and, like, blah blah blah. But I think you've realized that it is something that means a lot to me, and something that I kind of need, because it makes me a better person, a better husband, a better father. And so that is really a big thing. And I know it probably sounds really lame to a lot of people, but for me, that's the biggest thing that helps with my mental health. So yeah.
Yeah. And like, you don't want to feel guilty about that stuff. Like, that's what I've realized, is that as soon as you're like, hey, do you mind if I go and, you know, go for a walk or something, or go and do something by myself for a bit. It really sucks to feel guilty about that, because you're like, oh, bye. Am I doing something wrong? Like, I'll be as fast as I can. But actually, you can do that. Like, if Art wants to go and exercise for an hour and he enjoys that and he is happier and it makes him, I don't know, it really helps your mental health. I don't want you to feel guilty about that, because you deserve that. You're a human being, and that's important to you, and things are important to me too. And I don't want to feel guilty about it either. So
17
and I
songs. 17.
17.
That's exactly what I
17.
was about to say.
Mm-hmm. You get your exercise, and then you have to come to my concerts,
Mhm.
and you have to say it was the best thing you've ever heard. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think, like, those are really important needs that need to be met as individuals, because just because you're parenting, it's not like parenting and children and home life fills you up completely. Like, we have these needs as individuals that have to be met, because otherwise we suffer for it, and then everyone else suffers for it. So how do
Hmm.
you, like, when you have a need that's not being met, that's really important for you, how do you express, like, what does it sound like to express that to one another and be like, "Hey, if I don't go for a walk, I'm going to, like, flip my lid."
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to being reasonable. So if I if I am feeling like I really want to go out and do something and have an hour to myself, and if Art hasn't had any sleep and he's really stressed, the kids are going completely berserk, then I won't do it then, and like, even if I really want to, I can tell that it's not the right time, and everyone is, it's sort of all hands on deck at the moment, and that's okay. And I will do it when things are a little bit calmer, or when Art is at full capacity, and he can handle all three kids going berserk, or whatever it is. And so it's just like reading the room. I feel like that is the main thing, just checking in with your partner and being like, okay, I I am feeling really overwhelmed. I'm going to take a break or whatever. Um, and just picking your moment as well. Like, sure, you can do it when things are not good, but you have to be, you got to check in with your partner and just like make sure that they're all good and everything's fine. And then, I'm not sure, but that's how it feels. How about you?
I agree.
Smart man.
I'm not explaining it very well, but there you go.
No, but I think that there's a big part about being aware and considerate of what's going on. Like, that's part of working as a team as well. Being like, hey, I need this. When's a good time? And just a little bit of give and take on that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So you guys have had 3 home births. What was it like being a birth partner for those 3 home births?
It was a little bit stressful.
It's a bit on.
I mean, it's hard for me to talk about this because it's just in terms of like me. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining about this because obviously it's a lot harder for the for the mother going through this.
But you can be honest. Like, I think that's
Okay.
fair, and I think Maddie will allow it.
Okay, well, definitely each birth was very different, and I think they became less stressful. So the first one was stressful in that my job was a lot of it was around logistics, and we had a birth pool and we had a power cut, and so I couldn't get the temperature right. It was a lot of stress. It was our first birth, so we had a lot of unknowns, there was a bit of fear, and so I was very hands on with Maddie, helping her through the contractions. Doing like soft touch massage and all sorts of stuff, and like neither of us know really what's going on, so it's like the level of fear and stress. Second birth was just like a little tear down from that. Birth pool we had sorted with a Califont, so like gas heated water, which made it a lot easier, and then the level of fear was a lot less. It was far fewer unknowns, and Maddie was just far more confident in her own ability. So it was, although long and sleepless, it was easier. And then the third one was just a walk in the park.
Right, Maddie?
I
It does sound like a beautiful, beautiful, positive, empowering birth, and it was like such a thrill to be able to share that on the
it was really
podcast. I
cool.
wasn't actually there.
It was really cool. It's really cool just witnessing Maddie go through it, and just her progression and her own confidence of her ability and her body and her mental state. Like she was so confident this third time. She was like, "Yep, I don't need a birth pool." Um, she just kind of knew what was going on, and didn't require as much from me in terms of like help and support. I mean, even though she still did require it, it just wasn't to the same extent. So, although again sleepless, it was just a really great. It was just such a great birth, and I feel very lucky to have, delivered each of our 3 children into your arms.
That's
Like, I mean, that's
amazing.
pretty. it's pretty cool. So, what's it like being the birth partner? A little bit scary at the start, a little bit stressful, but really cool.
Yeah. What's it like, watching your partner go through this incredible, primal, arduous, miraculous experience?
First time, I was like feeling a little bit guilty and feeling like I wish that I could take some of the burden and the pain and the stress from her and have it on my shoulders as well to share it, because the reality is the 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 non-birthing partner can't do anything. I mean, sorry, not can't do anything, but that it's
Physically.
physically they're not involved. So you feel a bit left out, and you feel like you want to share the burden, but you can't. So there's that. And then, but with the most recent birth, I didn't feel that so much, because I felt like um, I just had total confidence in you, and I knew your ability, and I was like, oh, she's got it. So
Look at
I'm
her
not
go.
fussed. Yeah, she'll nail it, and she did.
Oh, that's really cool. That's so cool. What would you give? What advice would you give for other birthing partners? Like, what's the best thing they can do in terms of being involved and supportive and providing an environment that is going to help their partner give birth?
Having this like overarching mindset of like what your role is, and for me, I think that is your role is to make the environment as comfortable and secure and safe as possible for your partner to give birth, because I like at the end of the day, like the human body knows what it needs to do, and it's going to do it whether the female's like conscious or not. Like women can give birth when they're unconscious. The body just does its own thing. So, and I think the things that roadblock it and stop it are stress. And so by making the environment as stress free and supportive and safe as possible, I think that's the biggest thing that you can do. And so then under that huge banner come like so many different logistical things that you can do. And before you go into birth, you have a plan, you've communicated everything so much with your partner that you know what they want and when they're going to want it and how you can help. And so you're not having to ask all these questions while your partner's in labor. So yeah, I think planning definitely helps quite a lot as well. So
I think that's an awesome answer.
that'd be my
And
advice.
and you did some of the hypnobirthing classes as well. So did you get what did you get out of that helped you?
The first um for our first birth, I read the hypnobirthing book, and that was the biggest thing for me, because it made me, although it's a funny title, hypnobirthing, it sounds like hypnosis. Really, it was a philosophy and theory around um, what I just explained, keeping the body, allowing the body to be as relaxed as possible, and the birthing partner's mind to be as calm and relaxed as possible, and to let the body do its thing because it knows what it's doing. And so that's kind of the essence of hypnobirthing. And then there are certain tactics that allow you um, to help out with that. But for me, just reading the book actually and learning that was the biggest thing. And then I think doing some hypnobirthing classes was helpful, just to refresh some of the tactics and breathing techniques and meditations. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I'm aware that Penny has been so good, by the way. Is she asleep?
She has fallen
Oh,
asleep.
God bless her.
I mean,
She is just
truly.
the perfect podcast baby. No, we do need to wrap up but it's so good. I'm really enjoying this. If you could go back and give yourself some advice for like right at the beginning of your marriage, knowing what you know now, and the journey that you've been on, what would it be from each of you?
Don't do it.
No, for me, it would be. I know it sounds really silly, but it's not actually all about you. Because I think I do have quite selfish tendencies. I know I do. And that's something that I have worked on over my life, 33 years. Uh, and and I've realized how important the partnership is, and how important it is to make sure that there's a balance of give and take, that it's not no one's needs, we've talked about this, are more important. Like both of your needs are equally as important, and sometimes that means not getting what you want. Sometimes it means compromise on your end. Sometimes it means that you have to go with a totally different decision because you have to kind of choose which hill you're going to die on, right? And that's the essence of a partnership. It's respect for the other person, that it's not about you getting your own way all the time, and understanding that it's a two-way street, and it's a balance. That's been probably the most important thing I've learned. Just, don't be so selfish. How about you?
Do you think she's selfish, Art?
No, I don't think you're selfish. I think sometimes you can be selfish, but it's not in the way that I'm really concerned about.
And it's maybe it's when you're in certain times of your life that you're more selfish than others, but I definitely felt very selfish in my 20s, and I feel far less selfish now. And like maybe that's just to do with growing up and having a family and whatnot.
For sure. Advice that I'd give would be to. So this is advice that I would like. I wish I'd had, or I had
Well,
given
if you
myself.
could go back and whisper in Art Green's ear, just
Oh yeah. I think it'd be I think it would be, okay, you're married. I mean, even before you're married, really, but for me anyway. Like, okay, you're married. Matilda is now, like, your wife. Matilda is now she's your best friend. So she comes first for everything. Like, it's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, I mean, actually, I'm not even going to be able to explain, I think, what's in my head. So I'm not even going to try.
Just like
Shit advice.
just she's the best.
Yeah,
So,
she's the best.
Art Green goes back and says to Art Green before his marriage day, like, look, I don't know what to tell you, mate, but just like good luck. Yeah.
Yeah, you're fucked.
Yeah.
I think just treasure each other.
Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Also, I think advice would be, choose your battles. Really figure out how to choose your battles and let Matilda win a bunch of them.
Just at least 55%.
Well, because I mean, just don't sweat on the small stuff. There's so many little battles that you have that it's like doesn't even really matter.
Yeah.
But like, in a kind of from a selfish perspective, it's going to make your life a whole lot easier, Art, if you just sort of let her win a couple of battles.
Yeah.
How's this? This is the advice that Maddie wanted to hear.
She's like, I'm getting a lot of very good information now. She's like, I haven't won a battle this week. The next one's mine.
Yeah, according to the statistics.
Yeah. But I like that about, don't sweat the small stuff. Let some things slide. Like, there are some things that it really doesn't matter. And then once something's been dealt with, don't bring it back up. Like, that trash has been taken out of the house. Don't go out to the bin, pick it up, sniff it, and drag it back in. Like, just let it be gone.
Let it fester.
Well, let it be taken away, ideally, and maybe recycled into something better.
I don't want
it But what if the issue hasn't been resolved completely?
It must be resolved.
If it's in the bin, it's been resolved, right? Like, if you've had a conversation, you're both happy with it, and then you can just move on. And,
what if the conversation's been put in the bin by one person, and it's still like halfway to the bin for the other person?
God, I don't know. Maybe that's up to them to figure out.
You see someone going out there and flapping the lid, and you're like, oh, this one's coming back. That one was obviously on the shelf, not in the bin.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, but yeah, marriage is awesome. Go marriage sometimes if it works for you.
Well, some of us have to have a practice marriage first, and then we'll just see what happens in the future.
Exactly, but all learning, right? It's all part of our
part
of our life journey.
And even with a marriage that didn't work out, you asked me and my ex-husband, have we learnt? Oh man, so much that taught us so much, and we both acknowledged the value in that and how that has changed us and developed us as people. We are like much better people for having gone through that together and now not together than we were before. and we are better people for having ended it than for having stayed in it.
Yeah. And you've now got your beautiful babies, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had them before as well, but yeah. And the beautiful babies
No.
are great, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Without, if the marriage hadn't happened, then the babies wouldn't have happened. And yeah, so that is an amazing thing to come out of it. And it's just funny how things work out. You know, it is funny how things work out. Like, he's a great ex-husband. Not everyone is. I didn't know in the beginning, that's why I was choosing him, but, you know, credit where credit's due. It's working.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, not everyone is a good ex-husband. So, you know.
Yeah. And I think what I don't like about marriage is how longevity is the only marker of success of a good marriage. What do you think is, we will wrap this up, but this just popped into my head. What do you think is a good marker of a successful marriage? Like, maybe when you look at people that have been married for a long time and you're like, oh yeah, I like what they've done.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because it's so hard to. Yeah, the length of marriage is like the main external marker that you have on someone's marriage, right? Are you talking about from an external perspective, looking at someone else's marriage? Or are you talking about
Yeah, I guess. Well,
your own?
what I guess is, like, I don't like people that like who go, oh God, look, they've been married for 50 years, haven't they done well? But what if they hate each other's guts? You know. But so how can we better admire someone else's relationship as good role models for a long-term relationship?
I reckon that it all comes down to respect, and if you can look at another couple and be like, they obviously have a lot of respect for each other, and that should be the marker, because if you've got that level of respect, then you can weather a lot, and you're not going to get, oh, she's woken up, hey baby, and you're not going to get and you would never be mean to each other if you have that level of respect, and that's, I don't know, I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing would be love, but I mean, how do you quantify that? I mean, how do you qualify that even? Like, it's sort of, that's a real tricky one. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know. If there was a way to do that, then I think that would be the marker.
I love seeing old people who are still walking down the street holding hands.
So cute.
It's the best.
Yeah.
So cute.
Like,
Or like out for dinner together, just having a good chat.
yes.
Like, I think, isn't that lovely? Because surely you're chatting all day, right? Like, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you're not run off your feet busy, like when you're elderly. And so to be able to just go out for dinner and enjoy each other's company and be having a good time and having a good chat, I just think, oh, isn't that lovely? They haven't run out of things to talk about,
And they're still
They
connecting.
still,
You
yeah,
know,
they're still
they're
connecting.
connecting with their interactions, they're connecting by touch, and I think that's a lovely thing, like an outward thing that we can acknowledge. Okay, well, we're going to wrap up, and Penny has decided that it's time for the podcast to conclude. She has woken up, but there is actually one other significant anniversary that's just taken place, Maddie, and that's between you and I.
Oh my gosh, a happy anniversary,
Happy
podcast
anniversary
partner.
to podcast partner.
Oh,
Yes, Untidy has
it's
just
1
turned
year.
1. We turned 1 on Valentine's Day, so that's how we like to celebrate Valentine's Days with our own anniversary. But this past year, what has been like one or two highlights that you've felt with the podcast journey so far?
Oh, my biggest highlight was our live event, because then we could meet the listeners, and then that it just really made it real for me, being like, there are actual people listening to this and enjoying it, and we got to connect in real life, and it was just really special. I loved it.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was amazing. I think for me, like, the talking of small gestures, but any message that we get from anyone where they're like, "Oh, guys, I just love listening to you when I go up my Saturday morning walk, and I was having a really bad day, and then you made me laugh," and that gets me, because I think, oh, this is something that is really providing a service for people to lift them up regularly.
Yeah.
That I love that. I love hearing that. And the other one was I was thinking about our Sydney junket when we went. I mean, we don't have to go overseas to have a good time, but what we got
But
to,
it was
it
cool.
was great. What we got to do.
That was great for everyone. I wasn't stuck at home looking after the kids with COVID on my birthday.
We'll look at
Yeah,
different
sorry about
dates. Maddie, we're talking about one later in the year, but I'll let you know about that in due course.
Christmas.
Christmas. So Art's at home having Christmas with the kids, and we're off having a little drink. I'm in. But what I loved about that was that we got to sit around a table with our guests and have incredible conversations. And because when we often, more often than not, we have to do this remotely, which is still great. But when you're in a room with someone and there's so much energy in that conversation and so much connection in that conversation. And like we had just amazing chats. Like I was thinking about the one with Sean Zepps, who was incredible. And do you remember after that? And we were just like the high of having a conversation, is going to make a difference in people's lives, where you've just shared something incredibly special. And the high of that was just like, oh my God, wow, what was this peak experience we just had? And then we get to share that, with us, and we get to share that with our guest, and we get to share that with our listeners. And just having conversations that actually make a difference or make people's day a little bit better or lives a little bit better. Yeah, I just love that so much.
The bloody privilege.
Let's never stop.
Never stop. We'll be doing Untidy when we're like 85.
I'm fine with it. And like things will be getting progressively more and more untidy, no doubt. Anyway, we must wrap up, but
yes, I smell a doozy of a poo. Let me tell you.
What a treat.
You shit your pants.
Sorry, guys.
But this has been awesome. Like, thank you so much for giving us a peek behind the scenes of the relationship and just being open and candid, because I think it just helps everyone so much. Relationships, everyone's having them, but did we learn about how to have them? No, we didn't.
No, we absolutely didn't. Just throw in the deep end. Well, and thanks, Art, for giving up your morning to be a guest.
Well, hey, it's an absolute pleasure to be on here, and I mean, you summed it up so well, Hannah. But I just want to say, well done to you two for making this amazing podcast, because it hasn't been easy. There've been a lot of roadblocks. It's been a lot of hard work. You've been juggling different jobs and kids and all sorts of stuff, and so yeah, finding the time to even record, let alone finding the amazing guests, doing all the prep work, recording some amazing conversations, it's huge, and you guys are doing an amazing job, and I feel very proud to know both of you.
Oh,
Thanks.
thank you. I mean, you made it worth having you on just for that.
That was a really good therapy session. I feel positively enlightened.
Yeah, I feel like you guys should go and like have a little coffee or a little walk or something and just enjoy. It's great. Like what a fantastic conversation to have with one another, and also have someone like ask you questions that bring out all the stuff that you like about each other. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, and it's really cool because it's not very often you just say, "Hey, you know what I like? Do that more," and then it's just doesn't really come out of the blue that often.
No,
so yeah.
cool.
Yeah, thanks, Bean. It was really
Oh,
fun.
I loved it. Oh, well, and thanks everyone for listening. I'm sure everyone will enjoy this, and send us voice notes, send us messages, tell us what you think, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye, Matewa.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Untidy. If you enjoyed it, we would really love your help to support us to continue to make the show. Things you can do that make a huge difference is subscribing to the show so you never miss an episode. You can also leave us a little 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And of course, please share this podcast with your mates. It means that we can continue to build this community, keep putting out untidy episodes, and just keep doing what we love to do.
And don't forget to check out mybigmoments.com for kids' books that make your tricky job of parenting just a whole lot easier. Untidy listeners get a discount at checkout, so just pop in Untidy for 10% off your order when you check out. And lastly, we would like to thank all of the good people that make this podcast possible: Flicker Williams and Joe Rocker at My Big Moments for the beautiful artwork and design, and Maxine London Creative for editing this episode. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. We'll see you soon. Matewa.